So this is an earthship, and this is what I came to New Mexico to learn how to build. I really do like them. They're made out of tires. They're pounded with dirt, with sledgehammers, and compacted in about 90% compaction rate. And they weigh about 350 pounds a piece. It's a super solid structure. You can see the walls are a little bit slanted, and so it's resting on the dirt and the berm that's behind these, and we'll look at that in a little bit. But in here, this is going to be the glass wall, the front door. This is going to be the door for the bathroom. This is going to be about right here. You're going to have another glass wall, and this kind of insulates the interior space from the extreme temperatures outside, whether it's in the summertime or the winter. You'll have another door in the center here. The kitchen will be in this corner. The bedroom and the closet and the desk will be in this corner. And this right here is a cooling tube. It's a culvert. It goes about 20 feet back. It pulls air through the earth, which will cool the air to about 55 degrees. And so you have natural air conditioning in the summer, and then you just close it off in the winter. Now, in order to get it to pull, you'll have vents in your greenhouse right here, and when you pull that up, the hot air, the lighter air, will go to the top and out, and then there will be a transit above this door here, a hole, that the air will then get pulled out of the house, and then it will naturally pull through this tube and cool the earth. Cool this whole space right here to about 70 degrees. So it works. It's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. No moving parts, nothing to replace. Don't have to pay the HVAC people $100, $200 to maintain it every year. And 10 years from now, I won't have to spend $8,000 to replace the HVAC system.
It's a metal pipe and some windows that open.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some earth.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
And our ancestors knew this.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's how they cooled their houses. This is where the cistern is behind here, and it comes in and is piped, and this will travel along this one wall to the kitchen and the bathroom. And then the toilet.
Now, in the past, earthships, were built into the side of a hill. This is sort of the new concept of an earthship, where you start on level ground and you berm up the side. I think it makes it a little bit easier to do the pipe and
you can still do it into the side of the hill. What they started off with is digging down. So they dig down 4 feet, 5 feet, and they would have their tire work on the bottom and then also have on another ledge. But if you have a toilet in the bottom there, how do you get your piping out? It's very difficult. How do you repair it after it's all done? So you would have to have another pump to pump it up and out. What they do now is they build the first layer on undisturbed earth. So you level out the pad and then build the tires, and then you move the dirt to it. So you bring the dirt to the house. And that's really simple, because you can see the pipe comes in and it'll come to the bathroom. The bathroom will go, the piping will go out to the septic system, and it's all at level, slightly buried. So it's not as difficult to fix later. My house that I live in currently was here before I got here, and that is built into the ground. And so instead of using a flush toilet, we use a compost toilet from Nature's Head. And that's permittable and doesn't smell, and it works great. I highly recommend it. These tires aren't going to stay exposed like this. You can see that this is concrete. We put rocks into the concrete to take up space so we don't use as much. You can use plastic bottles, whatever trash you want to put in there that takes up volume helps, because you're getting rid of trash for one, keeping it out of the landfills, but you're also using less concrete.
Yeah.
So all of these tires will eventually have a wall that looks like a normal.
And we want to
wall.
use less concrete from an environmental as well as a cost perspective, right?
Yes and no. Technically, you are correct, but I get concrete donated that has been torn, that was going to the dump anyway.
Uh-huh.
And concrete for your wet environments, kitchen, bathrooms, outside wall, those are going to get wet. You generally don't want to put adobe on that kind of a wall because the rain will eventually wear it away.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have to come and repair it. And we want to try to make as maintenance-free houses as possible. So if you're going to get concrete, or if you're going to use concrete in your house, try to get it recycled and from broken bags if you can, because eventually they just throw them away.
Yeah.
And they go into the landfill.
Is there any disadvantage to using those ripped bags? Like why are they throwing them away?
Ease.
Like nobody wants to buy it, so there's
if you try to like put it in a giant, how are you going to rebag it at the store, and that kind of stuff? And you do have some stores that will sell like half price ripped bags, but when I get the ripped bags, I am covered head to toe with concrete.
Yeah.
With Portland.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I breathe it and that kind of stuff. So it's not great.
People don't want to deal with that.
But for us, it's free.
Yeah.
And so I try to use as much free, reusable stuff as I can. But it is durable. But something that people don't know about concrete is that it does steal oxygen over its lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
So if you live in a concrete box, you want to make sure that you have plants that are giving you back oxygen as the concrete steals it. It doesn't steal a lot, it's just something to be aware of. You've got insulation here. These are 2-inch foam boards, 4x8s, and then you've got them down farther too. So it's a wall of insulation right here that separates the cold dirt from the warm dirt that is in here. This is your thermal mass. This is where your sun is charging the house and keeping and storing that energy during the winter, during the day. And then that gives it back into the house.
So just to say that again, you've actually got the insulation on the outside of the structure because you wanted thermal mass on the inside to act as a thermal battery.
Yes. And so when this gets higher, this is our last course of tires right here. So when this gets here, we'll pour the bond beam for the roof to attach to, and then we'll put another piece of insulation here with plastic, so any of the rain that hits here will just slope away from the foundation. And this is the cistern. It's on the outside of the insulation, and it's about, I think, 1,750 gallons. It's not a 2,000. And then when we pipe this in today, this will come here, and then once it's piped, we can protect that pipe, and then we bury it. All except for this right here. It'll have an access so we can see what's going on inside. And so everything else will be buried because you don't want your water to freeze in the desert when it's negative 30 degrees outside.
Yep.
If you look around,
Yeah.
this makes veterans feel safe for the most part.
Yeah.
Because they can see what's coming,
Yeah.
and we're used to thinking defensively. We want the high ground as much as possible.
Yep.
So not only does it have beautiful views, and aesthetically we can see Taos lights in the distance, especially on a clear day. Right now there's a lot of smoke, but it makes veterans feel just naturally at ease. They won't even know why they feel peaceful here, but they just do.
They're on high ground.
So we're using we're using recycled glass in our building projects, and it works somewhat like sand. So we'll sift it to get it real fine for adobe work, which saves us from having to buy sand. It's a waste product. It's renewable. People aren't going to stop drinking beer, I'm pretty sure. So it will always be here. And currently Taos County does not recycle glass because they don't have anywhere to put it, and there's no one buying it, and it's not a product they can sell. So they just stopped doing it. So where is it going? It's going into the landfill. And it's taking up a lot of space because it's a bottle and it's hollow. And so now you've got the entire bottle taking up space. And so if you crush it and then you tumble it, the sides won't actually cut you. There's nothing there that's sharp.
Yeah.
And so we've actually paved our road with it. And on a full moon, it is just a river of light. Around 7:30 at night, when the sun hits it just right, it turns gold. It is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's all out of trash. So they love me because I'll go down to Santa Fe or Espanola and I'll basically say, hey, what are you throwing away? I'll bring it up here. And so they don't have to pay the dump.
Yep.
I rescue it from the dump, and then we turn it into actual homes for homeless veterans.
Yep.
Veterans in need of community.
Do you do any kind of like co-branding thing with them, or?
Not yet.
No.
I'm working on a sponsorship for our new college program. We're teaching people how to build a sustainable home in about 4 months. It gives them 30 credit hours at an accredited university, UNM Taos. It's part of the University of New Mexico system. Milwaukee has sponsored it. So every student gets tools, battery-powered, awesome Milwaukee tools. Instead of a chemistry book they'll never reopen once they graduate. We teach them.
It's sad but true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. We teach them what's out there, sustainability-wise. They may never have heard of aircrete. They may never have heard of hempcrete.
Yeah.
They may never have heard of straw bale. So we teach them first what's out there.
Yeah.
What's good for your climate that you want to buy land in and retire or build on. And then we teach them how to design it in SketchUp, AutoCAD, things, programs like that. And then we teach them how to 3D print it. UNM Taos has 2 3D printers, and now they're able to build the homes, like a little model. They can show people what they're going to build. And then we teach them the permitting behind it, because if you build without a permit, then you're at crossroads with the county. They can actually, fine you, bulldoze it, whatever, to make it correct. So we would rather have them be walked through in a logical way, because the unknowns often are so great that it prevents people from actually trying. So that's why we're teaching the school, is to be, we don't want them to be necessarily an electrician or a plumber by trade. We're not teaching them those skills in that depth, but we are teaching them how to be able to wire their own house, to be able to plumb their own house. You don't need to be a plumber to be able to do that. It's fairly simple, but you just need the direction. And so they take their basic structure that they've designed, and then they learn how to do it. And so within 4 months, the hope is is to be able to go buy some land, build their own house, or at least know what the contractor that they hired is doing. So it's not like you're taking your car to a mechanic and they're like, oh, let me see how much money I can scam you for. So to give them that knowledge is super valuable. I don't know, we just really want to promote education and get other people on board with doing this. So this is an earthbag home, and this is kind of the finished product. Troy's actually in the
And was this earth bags all the way up to the ceiling? Okay.
It's processed. He's in the process of moving, so this will all be cleaned out. And this was recycled brick. We got paid by a supporter of ours to demolish his brick porches because they were wavy and they were disintegrating. And so we were like, okay, we'll take them out. And so we brought them back here, cleaned them up from all the cement with a chop saw, and laid it. And this, you can feel it. It's comfortable.
Is there wood underneath this?
No, it's literally dirt, then 2-inch rigid insulation,
Okay.
then 2 inches of sand. We laid the brick in there, and then it was kind of spongy.
Uh-huh.
And then Home Depot had some ripped bags of sand and concrete mixtures that we would just, broom in and kind of hit with a little rubber mallet and get it all situated so that there wasn't any sponginess, and then we wet it all. And that solidified the whole floor. Now, when that southern sun comes in, it warms this brick. It penetrates all the way to the back of the house, and that provides the thermal mass.
Yeah.
Then keep this building, even on a negative 30-degree night, it's still 50 degrees in here.
Wow.
No heat.
Wow. And such a small structure. It's amazing, you can accomplish all of those passive heating principles.
Absolutely. And most of it is heated by a human being who's ever here.
Okay.
Their body heat
Your own
is
body
actually
heat. It's that well insulated.
getting trapped in here. And it's not really, we've got 38 in the roof, 38 insulation up here, R value. And on the outside, we only have one sheet of 2-inch rigid. So it's a 7.7 R value total. Not that great. And even with the deficiencies, because there's thermal mass in here, and this is a thick wall that traps the heat, it's still in a very harsh winter environment. It never went below 50. Most of the time it was 65 to 70 degrees in the wintertime.
3.
So here's our current project. This is the Super Adobe, Hyper Adobe Roundhouse. One of our veterans is actually taking the lead on it, and he's going to be staying in here over the winter. And you can see that these are the earth bags right here. And they're just like sandbags, except you don't use sand. It wouldn't be as structural if you use sand. So you use adobe. And then we experimented, because everything on this side is kind of an experiment, with, it's like Christmas tree bags, which you put the Christmas tree in, or the lemon bags you get at the store. And it's very, very cheap. It's about $35 for 1,000 feet or something like that. And you can just put layer and layer and layer and layer all the way up. And then we're going to coat it with a finished layer of adobe. And this is going to be an operable window and an operable window. So when you open it, you have breeze coming through. Keeps you cool in the summer. The insulation, again, is on the outside of the building. And that is because we want all of this dirt to charge and to be thermal mass. And it will work really well. It will keep them warm in the winter.
So that bottom layer, the bottom layer is what you call Super Adobe?
Super Adobe. Other people know it as earthbag.
Earthbag?
Yeah.
And then the top layers you're calling Hyper Adobe.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't really know why, but that's just what it's called.
Just some terms, so if people want to look that up further.
Yes, and this is going to be a loft. We wanted one with a loft this time. The earthbag house over there was completely earthbag and no Hyper Adobe, and that does not have a loft. And so we wanted to increase the space that people have in these tiny structures. So we added a loft. A little bit more expensive, but the amount of space that gets freed up is totally worth it.
And we're are we at 120 square feet with
outside wall to outside wall.
Okay.
So technically the inside of this is about 86 square feet.
Okay. Yeah, so this is designed to just be a one-person cabin. Could be
technically
temporary.
You could do two. You could have someone upstairs, someone downstairs, but I thought it'd be really cool to add some hammock hooks, so you could have the maximum amount of space to live in. Would you just tuck away your bed, hang it up, and So we may put some hammock hooks in this one.
Got to get one of those nice like rope hammocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lived in the Yucatan Peninsula for 2 years, so it.
Oh, beautiful.
I love hammocks. I love sleeping in hammocks.
Beautiful.
But this is going to be a really cool house, and this is a really unique roof. It's more challenging, but it's just the way it worked out this time. This is an 11-sided roof. I think they said it was a decahedron or something like that, and very special. And the veteran who's building it is super stoked about how it's turning out. He's very proud of how it's coming together.
And how did we arrive at 11?
They were going to do 12 because it's easier to do opposite, but it just didn't work out that way. You'll have to ask Armando.
Well, so
and,
I think
Kenny.
they it's circular, right? The dirt bags are circular. There's no particular angles there.
Right.
And I know they built this this front frame here for the windows and the doors.
Yeah. So these
And
windows,
and I think they had to reverse engineer it after that to figure out how they would match up
it took some time for
the.
them to
Yep.
talk it through
Yep.
and to figure out how it's gonna work.
Yep. So they had to do some math.
But it's cool because like the more varied things are, the more people are going to be able to learn and take away something
Yeah.
replicable. They can then replicate it because it's been done here.
Yeah.
And then it will catch water. It'll catch water on this side here. We already have the cistern, 300-gallon cistern, waiting for it. It's still not completed.
Well.
We're almost done.
Yeah.
We took this project on the end of last year, and we did all the hole digging, the foundation work, the cement, and then we put this up. It was a lot more work than I anticipated. If I had to do it again, I would go with a smaller hoop house.
Footprint. Now I noticed this is out of steel. It's out of a rigid plastic. A lot of the ones that I see are just like PVC with like a plastic film over it.
Sure. So we could have gone the cheap route with 2x4s, PVC, things like that, but we do have 80-mile-per-hour winds, sometimes gusting to 100 out here. So I wanted something that was going to last. Anything that's wood in the desert in this hot sun, we're at 7,000 foot elevation, it just gets destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So, within 3 or 4 years, I'd have to be replacing everything that we built. So I didn't want to do that, and I wanted something that was going to last a long time. So this is all steel. Nothing's going to happen to it. This is polycarbonate. This is plastic. This will eventually fail, but it's fairly cheap. It's not my ideal structure, and we'll go to what I think is a better option for this environment. Unfortunately, the government doesn't give grants for anything but this. The hoop house is kind of the standard, and it only gives you an extra month of grow time in the spring and an extra month in the fall. So we'll probably get about 8 to 9 months of grow time in here, but it's 1,800 square feet, and this is the beginning of our agricultural program. We don't want to just grow for ourselves, we also want to grow for the people in Carson and Taos. Specifically,
Mm-hmm.
New Mexico imports 93% of their food, estimation. 12% from other countries and the rest from other states. It's not sustainable. And so that is one of our missions, is to create sustainability, not just environmentally, but financially, food-wise, waste-wise, all of that. And so this is the beginning of that project. And we'll probably plant before the end is done, before the winter is here. Maybe some kale, some winter crops, harvest in the spring.
Now, would it be possible to build a greenhouse that would have a year-round growing season?
Yes, and that's where we're going right now.
Okay. And before we leave here, I want to note one more thing, which is the cisterns that you've got
Okay.
on the side of the greenhouse here.
So these cisterns were donated, temporary, and so we hooked these up, and we had 2 rain events in probably the last month. We've probably collected, I want to say, about 1,200 gallons. And in New Mexico, it's legal to collect off roofs. It's not legal to, put down plastic over the ground and collect, like a slip and slide kind of thing. You have to have a roof in order to collect water from it. But that will go towards watering the crops indoors. These are actually these are 1,200 gallons, so those will be replacing the 275 gallons and really up our water storage capacities.
Nice.
Because you really want to catch as much as you can when it rains.
So these large ones are actually going to end up being
over.
receiving the water from this greenhouse.
Yes. And you really don't want to catch water in the clear ones any way you can see. It's kind of a dark color now because algae is growing in it.
Yeah.
And while that's fine for plants, it's not good for drinking.
Yeah.
So this right here is a Walapini. It is dug into the ground approximately 5 to 6 feet. We're going to put walls over that surround and resist the earth with steel. It's all going to be permitted. It's going to have a south facing roof. This is south. So in the wintertime, the sun will penetrate the roof because it's going to be clear polycarbonate, triple layer for insulative purposes. It will heat the walls. The walls will be insulated about 3 foot down, and then the natural heat from the earth at 55 degrees will seep up from the floor and from 2 or 3 feet from the bottom. And that will heat it. It will stay above 45 degrees all year round. There will be vents on the rear wall, and that way in the summertime any kind of excess heat will be brought out and to keep the plants in the perfect temperature.
Okay, so this will be a year-round greenhouse.
Yes.
And
this is
where does that word come from? Where does the concept of a Walapini come from?
I believe it was first done in the Andes. It's like 14,000 feet elevation. Your growing time is super short.
Mm-hmm.
No room for mistakes. So I think they used these to lengthen the amount of time that they would have to raise crops. And the natural heating of the earth and the natural cooling of the earth would come into play to keep their plants happy. This is actually going to go to our microgreen production. And so hopefully we'll be able to produce a cash revenue because veterans don't like to have their hand out and be beggars.
Sure.
And so one of the things and one of the ideas behind Veterans Off Grid, one of the many layers, is that veterans will begin businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And that money they earn, some of it will go back to Veterans Off Grid for allowing them to be on the land and the opportunity.
Well, I think it creates a lot of possibilities, from there. Like even seeing this as an example, seeing what's possible here, will probably, any veteran that's going through this experience is going to think of their own, maybe other business models, maybe agriculture, maybe manufacturing.
You got it.
Other services they can offer.
This can be a stepping stone, or this could be where they put their headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
We only have 50 acres, but there's plenty of land out here. We can expand.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the hugel pit and the human manure pile. And because we use compost toilets in some of our buildings, we basically put it here, let it sit for a year, and then it decomposes. And then we use it in hugel pits or to plant trees. You wouldn't probably want to do it if you were planting potatoes or carrots because it could be dangerous with E. coli if you didn't let it sit long enough. But this is the trench in which we're going to have a tree line. So we started putting branches, tree trunks in there. We've got a lot of ways to go to fill it up. And then we've got trees that have arrived this week that we're going to be planting in it. This pile of earth we're going to actually be using in construction in different places. We have a lot of rock on our property, which is super challenging.
Right.
It would have been better had there just been dirt, but I like rock, so we're using it in different ways. Our next project is probably going to be a gabion basket. And a gabion basket, we'll put rocks in there, and I'll finally have an excuse of why I can tell Kenny, my builder, that rocks are good.
Right. Your life gives you lemons, huh?
Yep. And so from that fifth wheel, and when he discharges his gray water, that will run down here. That cistern will water the trees here, and they should grow really fast and really tall.
Where did you get the idea of a hugel pit?
It's German, I think. There's two ways you can do it. You can do it deep, or you can do it raised. And raised, I think, is for wet environments where they want the water to kind of shed. If I understand them correctly. But someone told me about it when I moved here, and I know that trees have trouble in deserts, which is why there's so much sage here. So anything I can do to make trees have a better chance. And I feel like the more trees we have, the more moisture in the air we're going to have, and the more it changes the climate. So if everybody was doing what I was doing, then it might change the microclimate where we have more water.
Yeah, it reminds me of permaculture, like a lot of what you guys are doing here. They've been very successful. I think it's Jeff Moore. I mightn't be wrong on that name, but he's had a lot of luck out in, not luck, he's had a lot of success in desert climates, and actually working to change the climate through practices of water retention.
That's cool. Have you ever heard of Brad Lancaster? Okay, so he's in Tucson, and he designed this whole permaculture thing to eliminate their flooding with mesquite trees, and it also gives homeless people on the side of the road, they can pick the buds, turn them into flour. The flour is good for diabetics. So it's a win-win-win. They have 50% reduction of flooding because the roots are tap roots and they go deep, and so the water just follows them right down.
Yes. I have seen that.
So you can provide solutions to problems. You just have to come at it the right way. And that's kind of what we're doing at Veterans Off Grid, is trying to provide solutions to everyday problems, not just in the veteran community, but everybody's having problems with water. Everybody's having problems with food. Everybody's having problems with waste management. So how can we help is what we ask ourselves. And so that's kind of what we're doing. But this is the wrong way to build an earthship. And in the person who built its defense, earthships weren't doing real well 22 years ago. They were overheating anyway. So he was trying to solve it by pointing it in a different direction and trying different things. This is a clear roof with a shade cloth. The clear roof lets in the sun in the summer, and it becomes 130 degrees. Too hot. You really want a solid metal roof, and you want lots of insulation so that it protects you from that heat. And then you want your windows pointed south, not east. You don't want them to be plexiglass, because plexiglass doesn't hold any heat. It just lets it go out. And so you want a double paned window. They spend a lot of time on intricate details and making it look beautiful, and that's awesome. But I like the functionality better. So how things work, it looks beautiful.
It's the foundation. It's got to be there. Yeah.
So eventually, to make this work, and you can also notice that it's down in the ground. So where do you get your plumbing? I mean, how do you get the plumbing out? It's not possible unless you pump it up and out. And then what if your pump breaks? Then you have to get somebody from Taos to come out here, and you're waiting without a toilet for 2 weeks. Probably not the best solution. Plus, it's going to be super expensive to fix. But you can feel the heat in here, which is great in the winter. But as soon as that sun goes down, all of the heat goes away.
Which is the opposite of what you want, right?
Exactly.
You're looking to balance out those
You
swings.
have lots of good thermal mass in here, and that's great, but he didn't insulate anything. So there's no insulation on the other side of the wall. You saw on that building how we had the thermal mass walls on the inside, then we had the insulation on the outside. And that protected it from just leaching out and being destroyed, the heat.
Yeah. Now the coolness right now, talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
The coolness of this area versus the heat in that foyer outside.
If you touch this glass or this right here, you'll feel a little bit of a difference, and then and so really you're getting, and this would have been more pronounced about an hour and a half ago, because the sun is already gone. It's already moving, so that but you can feel it, and that's actually counteracting with the walls, and the walls are in the earth, and the earth is about 55 degrees.
Yeah.
So you're going to get an average of about, I would say, 70, 75, depending on what the greenhouse is doing. Now, what he tried to do was he tried to keep this, he tried to get this to be where the heat goes. But what is that? Where is the air coming from for the heat to do that? You're taking 130 degree air from your greenhouse, pulling it through your house for it to go out. Well, that's terrible. You want the vent that way. And then you want the cooling tube here that's pulling the cold air.
Right.
And now it's impossible.
And you get the natural effect from the heat rising. If you've got it venting out through the greenhouse, through the heated part,
Yes.
That's what you want, rising and passing out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really impossible for me to fix by putting a cooling tube in.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't insulate the walls actually acts to my advantage in the summer because it's cold. It feels cold. And that's good. But in the winter, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got negative 30 degrees out there, and you're at 40 degrees in here. Your pipes don't freeze. You won't die, but it's not comfortable. And so we have to burn fossil fuels to heat the space, which a lot of people in conventional houses have to burn fossil fuels as well.
Right.
So we're trying to make it work with a balanced approach without having to spend, $30,000 to $70,000 to fix. And then the bathroom has a composting toilet in it. And this space isn't finished either. That's going to be done probably this week or next week. And
Okay.
This is a Nature's Head toilet, and I think it's the only composting toilet that separates urine from solids that's permittable in a house. And we're a distributor for Nature's Head, so if people need them, we can get them cheaper.
Yeah, and that's what you want, so that you can take your gray water and repurpose that.
The gray water. This is not a flush toilet. This is where you have to empty it. It literally composts with peat moss. It literally composts inside the toilet, and then you take it out, empty it, put it back in. But you don't smell it. It's completely innate. And then right here you have a fan that blows, the exhaust out. So you're never going to have that. If you had a bucket in here, your house would smell pretty bad.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty nice design, and you empty the urine faster every couple of days because that is really what creates the smell.
But you can dump the urine on plants and
as long as it's not too long, because it starts to turn into a different chemical, which is not good for your plants.
Oh.
And I've actually killed a few doing that.
What do you do with the urine? Do you
I just dump it in the desert, and eventually that's gonna percolate down, and it's fine. But the earth is the best filter system.
Well, it's very alkaline here.
You can have.
Yeah.
And then most earthships don't have closets. So this was actually 2 rooms. It was a toilet room and a small walk-in closet. But we've taken it, we've opened it up. So it's nice and spacious.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a little bit of work to do on that as well. And then I'm moving, I usually move out of my house here in the summer, or as winter approaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put a veteran who doesn't have any place to live, I put him in here so he doesn't freeze to death. And we did pretty good. And we're so close to having a functional house. We've got a plumber coming. We're going to finish hooking up the hot water heater. We're going to put the shelves in here. There's going to be shelves here and plaster. And this is a filter system that was donated to us. And that's going in under the countertops. And that can turn beer into water, wine into water. It can take anything you can throw at it and make it purified, which is an amazing system. So I'm super excited we have the support of that company. And
what's the company called?
The name is escaping me right now, but I can get you that. But they're doing amazing things. They're actually, technically, a house could, if designed right, you could collect the water from the rain, use it to wash your dishes, wash your body. It comes to the greenhouse, feeds the plants, then comes back into the house as gray water into your toilet that's been filtered through the earth in your planter beds and the plants themselves. Looks clean. It's not clean. You wouldn't want to drink it. And then it flushes out to the septic system, and you would have a piranha, like a grinder, a filter system like this, but better, and you could route it right back in the house. Technically, it's illegal, but you could do it, and it would be totally fine, totally clean. What do you think happens right now?
Well, and
when
that's
our normal.
That's where we need some variants for experiments, right?
Sure.
Like
Yes.
and to run that experiment, to run the tests, and then to work with the people writing the codes.
Yes.
To say
It's just a long.
there should be a
long
certification process. Yeah.
Just a long process, and not very many people are open to it.
Sure.
And it does threaten certain powers that be, certain status quos.
Well,
Because
it would mean you'd be recirculating 80-90% of your water, right?
And you wouldn't have a Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have lead in your pipes.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to spend trillions of dollars digging them up and replacing them. Everything would be localized.
Right.
Everything is responsible from the homeowner standpoint.
Yeah.
And not the cities. And
Yeah.
you wouldn't be pumping fluoride and chlorine and all these harmful chemicals to your body into your water supply.
Yeah.
Just to keep it safe for everyone.
Right.
It doesn't seem safe. If fluoride is a neurotoxin and you're putting it in your products and you're putting it in your water supply and people are drinking it. It doesn't, I don't know. You'd be like, hey, you can have a little bit of rat poison. It won't kill you. But would you do it? Would you be like, oh, I can have a little bit? Probably not.
Yeah.
So I think this is a better system.
Well, if you combine that with like the water recirculation with like aquaponics or vertical gardens, there's these ways of growing food and recirculating the water. So some really interesting possibilities happen, even out here in the desert.
The only problem with that is that you have to pay taxes on the square footage of your house. If you have a 2,500 square foot greenhouse on your house, now your house is 2,500 square foot more valuable to the county, and they hit you with taxes. You can't live in it. You can only grow food.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you have a separate structure and import your water from your home, your gray water, to the separate structure? You don't have to pay taxes on it. And that's what we're doing with the greenhouse, or the hoop house technically, and the Walapini. That's why we put the earthship right there, so we could use that gray water to then water the plants in both those structures.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pay taxes on it. Big difference.
Yeah. But this comes back to the way the codes are structured now, and you're working around that, not necessarily around what would be physically would make the most sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And trying to change that bureaucracy is not a fight that I feel I can win. And I'll give you a good example. A homeless veteran.
Well, it's not the right first step to take, right? Like there's so many other things that can be done now
Yeah.
that are steps in the right direction. If if many more people begin to live
Like
in
this.
a place where they're one step away from this sort of, well, they're stepping into more and more sustainability, right? That becomes valuable. That becomes a direction that more people want to go.
Sure.
Then you'll see the regulations start to shift in that direction.
Yeah. There's an organization called HUD-VASH. It's based on the HUD, Section 8 and Housing and Urban Development, I think is what it stands for. And they provide vouchers for people who are low income or in need of a place to be, or they'd be homeless. And you take a veteran and you have an organization like Veterans Off Grid, where we have nice homes. They heat themselves, they cool themselves, they catch rainwater, they solve so many issues. They use recycled materials to build. But the government will not allow, or will not pay for, I'm not going to say allow, but it will not pay for a home that is off grid. It is illegal for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, there's trailers in Taos County. They're full of cockroaches, mice, dangerous to the veteran. $500 electric bills, $800 propane bills a month. Those are approved.
Yeah.
Something like this is not.
Yeah.
To me, that's egregious.
Yeah.
Why? You just ask, why? No one can answer you. They just say that's how it is.
Yeah.
And so there's rules like that all over the place that make building very expensive, especially in California. And people wonder, well, why do we have so many homeless? Well, if you make a house $900,000, or if you make it $800,000 to build, you got to sell it for $900,000. You can't sell it for $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
People can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So then they end up homeless. And then you've got government having to foot the bill. So we almost create our own problems, shoot ourselves in the foot, and then say, ha! Why do we have so many problems?
It's unsolvable.
You know? And so it's just like, how? So
it's only unsolvable if we're unwilling to budge on all these different variables.
Right.
Yeah.
So instead of fighting those battles, I have decided that I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And hopefully, people will come along and they'll see, hey, this is a better system. And if not, well, I guess nothing will change.
Now, New Mexico has provisions for experimental building, right?
There is one in the entire country, and now two as of last year.
Okay.
2 organizations have gotten it, and I'm not interested in it. Michael Reynolds tried to get 600 acres, then he tried for 200 acres. He ended up with 2 acres. But he had to put up something like $200,000 handed over so that they can bulldoze whatever he builds if they don't like it.
Wow.
Every 5 years, he has to go through a review. If he's violated some code, they're not comfortable with it, it's dangerous, whatever, or they think that it's dangerous, whether it is or not, doesn't matter.
They bulldoze it.
They can.
Yeah.
Or they make you bulldoze your own house, and that happened to one of my friends in Three Peaks, where the traditional philosophy in Three Peaks is you own a 1/4 acre of land, but you can't build on a 1/4 acre of land. You have to have 3/4 acre of land for the septic. Why would you sell them a 1/4 acre if they can't build on it?
Mm-hmm.
But they did. So he builds on it, and then he gets a red tag, meaning you got to stop. So the traditional or the conventional wisdom is then you go inside and finish out your side. So you build as fast as you can until they red tag you, then you come inside, build out the rest of your house. Well, he got red tagged again because his neighbor complained. He got red tagged again because the same neighbor complained. And now he had to bulldoze his own house at his own expense. Sucked. It was fine, but because he didn't go through the proper permitting process, he no longer has a house.
Mm-hmm. So how do you avoid that situation here?
Permit first.
Yeah.
But
So
you
you
can't
actually are
avoid.
working within the permit system.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am. Now, the only thing that I'm doing without permits is the 120 square foot that is allowed. You can build something that's below 120 square feet, like a cabin
Yeah.
or a shed
Yeah.
or something like that, and they make allowance. It used to be 200 square feet, and then people started to live in them, and you can't have that.
Hmm.
That doesn't make any sense. We'd rather have them homeless. So you can't do it 200 square feet. You have to do it 120 now
Yeah.
in Taos County. And
So you work within what you have.
I think that, again, we're our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
I think we try to mean well.
Yeah.
We try to protect things as much as possible. We try to, isolate ourselves in these giant bubbles of protection. And I think it just, it gets so overregulated that then it just becomes so expensive to build that it becomes the haves and the have-nots. And you can build. I mean, our forefathers, they came to this land. How did they live?
They did whatever they could, right? They chopped wood to survive the winter.
So, in today's society, they would have been bulldozed.
Yeah.
All those ancient homes that
Yeah.
we now say,
It's
we
a
need
historic.
to protect these.
It's a historic building. Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't be allowed to live in.
Yeah.
They would be condemned. You would be arrested. You would fined, whatever. So all of our ancestors wouldn't pass.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a guy. His name's Eustace Conway, and I was in his first survival student iteration. And I think it was 1990 or 90. Yeah, I think it was 1990 that I went. We lived in teepees. It was amazing. He gave me the love for the environment and for nature. And when I was in Afghanistan fighting for the freedom of Americans, they tried to take his land. He had 500 acres that he had accumulated. How did they do it? What did they want to do with it? Well, they wanted to sell it to a developer, because then you could make 500 McMansions at $1 million a piece. Think about the tax revenue for the county.
Okay.
So they were taking it away based on what? Well, he didn't have electrical outlets every 4 feet. He didn't use electricity. He was building to the 1700s and 1800s codes with trees he chopped down himself. He has a roof that was, he had 5,000 hand-hewn bark shingles, cedar bark shingles with nails he had made in his blacksmith shop himself and nailed it to the roof. They wanted to tear it all down. He took inspiration from Michael Reynolds. Don't know if Michael Reynolds knows how much his effect has gone out and inspired other people.
Mm-hmm.
But Eustace took inspiration from Michael Reynolds' fight against the state,
Mm-hmm.
because the state repossesses his architectural license. And Eustace got a rule enacted in the legislature of North Carolina that said if you build to teach people how to build and, in a historical way, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't live in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of... So I called from Afghanistan. I was pissed. I was like, I'm here in Afghanistan. I went to college in Boone. I plan to retire in Boone. All because this man and his impact on my life. And you're trying to steal his land. I mean, it may be incensed. It's his. Do we not have property rights anymore with eminent domain?
Yeah.
So, code is important. But sometimes you're so rigid, you forget in the spirit of what you're trying to do. And you make it so expensive that it's almost impossible to live.
We got to ask ourselves, what we're fighting for if we're, letting our rights be taken away at home, the right to, create a living for yourself, create a living situation.
Right.
And, I don't think either one of us would argue that, codes are bad categorically. No one's arguing that. But like the way,
how do we work together
Yeah.
to solve it so it's doable again? Like I moved to 10 acres in Carson and had a fifth wheel with electricity, with a refrigerator, with a heating and cooling system. And I got called by the county saying one of my neighbors complained. And I got evicted after being in Afghanistan and fighting for 3 years. I got evicted. Well, they didn't evict me, but they told me I was going to get evicted if I don't move it. They asked me a question. They said, "Are you living in your fifth wheel?" I said, "Yeah," until I built something better. And they said, "Well, that doesn't work. You can't live in your fifth wheel unless you have a residential permit to build something better. But that's going to cost money." So even though I was in a comfortable space, I could live in a teepee, I could live in a yurt, I could live in a tent outside my fifth wheel. But I could not live in my fifth wheel. So it just seems there's a level of...
Who are you hurting, right? Like you're...
On your own land. You own it.
Yeah.
And you cannot be there.
Yeah.
It just struck me as distinctly un-American. But, I work within a system that's like that, so I comply to that. And so anything bigger than 120 square feet, we go get permits now. I used to not, and then I got red tagged, and I was like, okay. So I've got to work within those rules until those rules are changed. For 2 years, since I bought the land in late October 2017, it had been a struggle. Every moment, it was like 3 steps forward, 4 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It was just fighting. When I came back after this winter, because usually I leave the property so that a veteran who's cold can have my place. When I came back, I felt like I was home for the first time. I felt like there was people here that were so amazing. It wasn't just me anymore. I never wanted it to be just me. And so it was such a relief and a joyful moment when I could just say, okay, it's starting to grow on its own. It's not me. I don't have to drive it. And the things that I've learned while being in Taos, because Taos does test you, is to be grateful. And when you are grateful for even the smallest thing, that joy is present in your life. And the natives, oftentimes, they'll take tobacco and they'll use it in an expression of gratitude or prayer. And I've adopted some of those traditions, I guess you would say. And the feeling when you're looking at this and you're grateful for the little things, and you come out in the morning and the sun is just cresting that mountain, and you take a little pinch of tobacco and you say thank you. It's just, the world fades away, and all the problems that people are so concerned about, they fade away. And it's just you and the universe and your brothers and sisters helping each other.
Well, that's it for our interview. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for making it through to the end. If you like what we're doing and would like to help us grow, please tell your friends. Thank you, and blessings to you and those you love.